What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show. Hold on, I'm just going to move stuff back. We are coming to you live, not from our home base, but from Montana, Billings, Montana, because we are back with another Fusion Fight League event. By the way, if anybody does want, and first things first, nobody's on the live yet, so I do want to apologize if you guys are joining after the fact. We had to move the show up. We are supposed to be at the venue ahead of time doing sound checks and all that stuff during the normally scheduled time of the show. So we had to push it up at the very last minute. So anybody who is unable to jump on now or jumps on later, watches this as watches the replay, we apologize for that last minute change. We'll do better next time. But anyways, we are back after a very exciting week of drama and crazy stuff in the UFC. We got a quick comment from Tehran. What's up, Tehran? Thank you for jumping on early. I appreciate it. MGal4 Production says, yo. And by the way, I'm going to post a link to the Fusion show today. If you guys want to watch, you're able to watch the stream for free during the prelims. I think there's 4 prelim fights, if I'm not mistaken. I have to double check my notes. And then, I know, Urseg versus Myrna. We're going to talk about that. That's not one of the listed topics, but I do want to touch on that. Maybe we'll touch on that right at the beginning. But if you guys want to watch along, Justin and I are co-commentators together, and so we'll be commentating the fight, so you guys can check that out if you're interested. I'm telling you, dude, there's something special in Montana with these Montana fighters when you get to know them, and I try to share as much of their stories as I can during the broadcast, but when you get to know these guys and get to see what they're doing, dude, there's one of the guys that are on the prelim, Justin, I don't know if you know this, he's an aeronautical engineer. And he's right now in college that he wants to be a professional pilot for commercial airplanes. And so he's at the beginning of a 4-year program. On top of that, he had leukemia from the age of 4 to 7, was in the hospital, was near death, came out of that. And the reason why he fights, or he's doing, this is his first fight, I believe. The reason why he's doing this is he says, well, I have a healthy body and a healthy mind now after going through that tremendous illness. And I feel it's a waste not to use my God-given athletic talent. So that's why he's fighting today and going to give it a shot and wants to be an amateur fighter, doesn't want to go pro. But I mean, these are the types of people that are stepping in to the cage at this level. And I think it's so cool. And it's different from UFC, right? Those guys like Justin who gave it their all and wanted to be professionals, but it's just a different thing. And all of it is really interesting. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. If you guys want to tune in, I'm going to post the link shortly. Justin, how's life? How are things? And any updates on the hand?
Yeah, we're good to go, man. You know, it's a small stress fracture in the knuckle. Can you hear me?
Yep,
yeah,
I can hear you. I don't know, there was a
delay.
delay.
Fracture in the knuckle. Yeah, it sometimes does that when we're connected. But yeah, like I said, small stress fracture in the knuckle. The swelling is gone. It still has a little bit of pain on impact. But I was trying to play around with the bag yesterday while I was at the gym. Still not strong enough to do that. But, you know, we're approaching the 4-week mark where the doctor said after 4 weeks I should get back into light contact. I'm really excited to get back into training. I think at the end of that video, that you did after the fight we talked about, I was like, oh, you might not see me again. And, I kind of jumped the gun there. And I one of my friends jumped the gun too. I'm not retiring, guys. Like, I might not do any bare knuckle again. That's kind of more what I was gearing that to. But I still want to do MMA. I still want to do, am I going to ever compete at the highest level? Absolutely not. I don't have really any interest. I mean, if it was a possibility, sure, I'd have interest to do it, but it's just at where I'm at right now in my career, 35 years old. I've been struggling winning fights in the last couple of years with all the injuries, but I still want to travel. I still want to compete. I still want to train. But my mindset right now is focusing on commentary, focusing on the 10-7 and going as far as we can with that. There's no point in fighting all these killers at the highest level for essentially peanuts. So, like I said, I kind of jumped the gun and said you might not see me again, and that was again more towards bare knuckle than total competition. So I'm feeling good. I'm healthy. I just did a week in Florida with some friends, and I'm back. We're ready to go. I wasn't able, by the time we got to our destination, I didn't have service, and I wasn't able to text Luisa or Jose for that. I wasn't going to be able to make it. So I apologize for that, guys. Thank you, Jose, for holding it down as always. And yeah, let's get this party started.
Now, am I okay? Am I choppy right now, or has my connection been okay so far from your end?
So far, so good. Are you on the internet?
I'm on the Wi-Fi. Yeah. Are you?
No, I'm not. Let me connect.
Okay, so that might be a little bit better. By the way, guys, here's what we're going to do. I'm posting the link right here in the chat. So in the chat, oh, did that work? I don't know if that worked. Oh, what the heck? It like had okay, that did not work. Wait 1 second. I'm trying to post the link here for Fusion Fight League. Let me try it this way here. Okay, let me post it again. Boom, there it is. So if you guys want to check out the Fusion Fight League, the pay-per-view, again, there's the link. It's in the chat. And once again, the first 4 prelims are going to be free. And then after that, if you want to keep watching, you'll have to pay. But this will start 6 p.m. our time, which is 4 p.m. Eastern time. What am I saying? 6 p.m. our time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. PST if you're out of the West Coast. Anyways, all right, let's get into the fights and all the stuff that's going down. Now, this weekend, I didn't have it on our topic list. We have to do the show within about 45 minutes because we got to then get ready to head down to the show ourselves. But this weekend, we do have Steve Erceg going up against Brandon Moreno. I did want to talk about it, but it's just, I know, Justin, you don't follow the flyweight division that much. And so I figured we'd talk about some of these other topics that were kind of more interesting, a little bit juicier perhaps in the media. But I will say this. Man, who doesn't like Brandon Moreno? I think you've trained with him. I can't remember, but I feel like you've told me that you have. And I know you really like him. Let's just say at a high level, is there somebody that you're rooting for? And is there somebody that you think if they won, it would be better for the flyweight division of the UFC overall?
You know, unfortunately, the flyweight division they have a really tough time getting momentum going and getting people excited about the division as a whole. I mean, I mostly tuned in when you have, Demetrius Johnson and Henry Cejudo going back and forth. But, you're right. Training with Brandon Moreno, man, seeing what kind of guy this is, what kind of character he is, and what a genuine guy. Always smiling, always laughing. He's really into Legos. He'd come into the gym, he'd have his big Lego bag and shit like that. Like the guy, you can't not like the guy, regardless wins or lose. You can't not like the guy. He is a very pleasurable human being to be around. I enjoyed my time with him. Not that we're boys or anything, but again, I get a little glimpse. I get a little relationship with all these guys as they come in, whether we train together or whether we talk with them or whatever it is. Brandon Moreno is some guy that I cannot root against, man. He wishes the best for all fighters. He does, like he's always. I mean, unless he's competing, obviously he wants to win. But the guy's just a stand-up guy for the MMA community. It's really hard to go against him. Now you look at Steve Erceg on the other side, who's come through, and I know that you're a big fan of Steve Erceg. You started to really get behind him. In his interviews and stuff like that. I mean, he's a dog, man. When you're fighting at the top of the division, when you talk about the 125 division, it's just unfortunate that I can't gain any momentum because these guys are so fast and so quick and so athletic. I really think the 125-pound division might be the most athletic division of them all. Unfortunately, they just can't put together knockouts like the heavier divisions do, so it's hard to get momentum going in those kind of weight classes.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this, and we've heard other fighters talk about this. And the thing is because the cranial structure from heavyweight to flyweight isn't that different, right? So it's like heavyweights. It's not like heavyweights. Their skull strength and the density of their bones is that much bigger, proportionate to how big they are. That's why the knockouts happen so much more frequently. That's the theory, anyways, because they generate so much more power. But it's not like their brains are that much more protected. And then when you get down to the flyweight division, the power diminishes drastically, but that cranial strength is still pretty strong. So I think that's why you're just not getting as many knockouts. It is what it is. I think it's just physics, unfortunately. But going back to Steve Erceg, these are two really, really nice guys. Now, obviously, Steve Erceg is not nearly as popular as Brandon Moreno, former champion, but Steve Erceg has a similar type of personality where he's just likable and he's real. You listen to him in interviews. There's no front. There's no BS. And to me, that's what I gravitate towards. I know sometimes the crowd gravitates towards the flashier guy, the bigger guy, but I am just a fan of somebody comfortable in their own skin and being able to talk openly and honestly. And I think Steve Erceg and Brandon Moreno both do that. So from the perspective of their personalities, I think this is a cool fight, and I'm excited for either fighter to come out victorious. I do kind of think it'd be cool, though. Steve Erceg got the win because I think he's on the rise. Don't forget, he almost beat Pantoja. I mean, a lot of people thought he did beat Pantoja. It was a razor close fight. Actually, Erceg felt he lost, which is very interesting, but other people felt that Erceg won. So this is going to be a big and important fight. Western says, "You early sons of guns." Just to let you know, Western, the reason why we're early is because we have to go. We're in Montana right now, so we have to go to the Fusion Fight League event earlier than normal. So that's why we had to pull the show back, and we apologize. But thank you for joining anyways. We really appreciate it. Okay, let's get into topic number one. I don't know if you saw this, but Jorge Masvidal recently did an interview on Submission Radio, And he's talking about wanting to come back. He wants to fight in the UFC. He wants to compete at the highest level. They were even saying, I know you're not going to love this because I don't think you consider Jorge Masvidal to be that high level of a fighter. But they were saying, and Jorge agreed, that because of Jorge's star power, if he got one good win, he might get right back into title contention, which is crazy. But how perfect would it be at this point for Jorge Masvidal to finally fight Leon Edwards after they had that scuffle in London years ago? You could make that fight. Leon has lost 2 in a row. Now he could come in, he could fight Jorge Masvidal, he could get his mojo back, or Jorge could get the victory, who knows, and move up and fight for the belt. What do you think about this potential matchup?
I mean, Jorge's been off for so long. He's unfortunately he's become irrelevant to me. Like, hey man, I like his personality, I like his style, but Jorge, I mean, if it's not for that Ben Askren knockout, that the highlight reel knockout, like that's what he's known for. He's not really known for anything else. He's lost to Colby Covington, multiple times, and it wasn't even close. I like Jorge in the division. I think he's a great gatekeeper, man. It's you look at like Kevin Holland, you got Jorge Masvidal right there. He's not a championship caliber fighter. I never thought he was. I still don't think he is. He's had such a long layoff that how disrespectful to Leon Edwards. Now, if Leon Edwards wants this matchup, I think it should give it to him. We're talking about the former champ, knocked out Kamaru Usman, with that beautiful left head kick. And, he's had some, some rough goes as of late, especially in his last one where he got subbed, in the 4th round to Sean Brady. But like we got to talk about what's deserving. And, after a long layoff to Jorge Masvidal, after taking a loss to Colby Covington, I don't think Jorge Masvidal has done enough for the UFC to be warranted to take such a long layoff and just come and fight the former champ. I don't see that. I think it's kind of bullshit. And if Leon Edwards, agrees, like, I mean, I think it should be up to Leon Edwards. I don't think Jorge Masvidal should have any. And you know what? I tell you what, this might be a fight. Let me revoke something I said. This might be a fight Leon Edwards wants, because I think Leon Edwards is such a favorite in this fight that he might be like, all right, I can go there, handle it, squash this beef we had, and I can go in there and get an easy win, get back on the win. So, this might be a fight Leon Edwards wants. So let me say that. Sorry, I'm going to take that back. But Jorge Masvidal, I mean, if he's calling for this fight and Leon Edwards doesn't want it, he doesn't deserve this fight. And if Leon Edwards doesn't want it, I really hope he doesn't get this fight.
I get, and I 100% agree with what you're saying in terms of, I'm not saying that this would be a fight, it would be a perfect fight because of Leon's last 2 losses, and that's where he's at now. I'm not saying that, by the way. Because of the storyline, it could be a captivating fight. And also, they could headline an event easily headline event. I'm not saying a major UFC card.
I think it'd be a fight night.
Sure, for 100% a fight night. And I guarantee you so many people would tune in. I have to say, I don't know if this makes me a casual or not, but I would be really actually excited for that fight. I do think Leon Edwards would be favored. Jorge's been out. Jorge's even talking about how he's missing a step now. He's just not as quick visually, mentally, all that stuff in terms of seeing strikes coming. He said that after the Gilbert Burns loss, and he's only gotten older. He had that boxing match. He's been out of MMA training. So I think Leon would be heavily favored. But I do think it would, in a way, I think it'd be great for Leon because he would headline a card. He would probably win and he could get right back in there. And a lot of people would watch it. So I think that could position him well. Alternatively, the other thing that people have been saying is they're saying Leon Edwards against Ian Gary, because there's also a story there. Ian used to train with Jorge. Does the Ian Gary fight or any other matchup interest you more for Leon or think would be a better fit for Leon than Jorge?
I like the Ian Gary fight simply because, Leon has lost 2 in a row now. We talked about, if you guys saw that video that I made about, getting to the top and staying at the top. And, it looks like in my opinion that, Leon's lost a step, man. And when you get to the pinnacle and, if you guys, like I said, again, watch that video, if I talk about having a target on your back and, and just to see what Sean Brady just did to him, man, it's like Sean Brady's moved up to the number 1 contender spot after that great win. I think Leon Edwards would be a great gatekeeper for Ian Gary, especially, because he just lost to Shavkat. This would be a great fight for Ian Gary to get back in title mix, go against the former champ, probably win. Again, I think Leon Edwards is probably not mentally sound. Like I said, man, getting mentally ready to fight. When you're the champ and then you lose and then you're like, okay, well, if I win my next fight, I'll be back in the mix. But then you lose 2 in a row. Leon Edwards dropped to like 4th in the rankings. He's going to have to win at least 2 fights to get back to title contention. And that could be a whole year. And guys, you guys, and I talk about this all the time. I talk about in their videos. I talk about in the live stream. To get mentally prepared to fight some of the best fighters in the world and know that you have to win 2 or 3 in a row is so mentally taxing that it's really, really tough to put together. And to see Leon Edwards in his last 2 fights, he didn't look great in either fight. What says he's going to look great in this fight? I don't see him looking great in this fight. I think Jorge's the better matchup for Leon, but I think Ian Gary's the better matchup for the UFC because, again, Ian Gary goes against Shavkat, undefeated with all finishes, goes in there, loses a decision, no big deal. He comes back, he fights the former champ, he gets the win, he's right back into title contention, and Leon Edwards is now the gatekeeper for the division.
Okay, well said. I'm going to highlight a couple comments. And by the way, Western made fun of my hair in the last video I did. So let me know if you think my hair is better this time. It was a little crazy. Tehran says, I would love to see Masvidal versus Holland. That is so good too. If they don't, like that's a really good fight, actually. If they don't give, I don't know if Masvidal would take it though, because Masvidal last fought Gilbert Burns was, I mean, whatever you want to say, he was at least in the top 10 at a minimum. I think he was ranked 7th when he bounced out of the UFC. But hey, I think that would be a really fun fight. I kind of rather see him go against Leon, but that's my personal opinion. And then Edwards Masvidal can also be a good co-main pay-per-view. Yeah, that's pretty much it. What else? Yeah, it's mostly guys just saying what's up to each other. So there we go. Okay. Let's move it along to topic number 2. All right, this is outside of mixed martial arts, and this is sort of boxing / what's it called? Influencer boxing. But I wanted to get your take on this, Justin. So if you recall, Anthony Joshua, excuse me, a British boxer who knocked out Francis Ngannou, and I think he's taken a loss since. I'm not sure, but he's an Olympic level boxer, heavyweight. Okay, no longer a middleweight, no longer a lightweight, or no longer whatever the weight classes are in boxing. I don't know, whatever Canelo is, cruiserweight or something like that. But he is now throwing it out there, the challenge to fight Anthony Joshua. So every step along Jake Paul's career, every step of the way, people have said you're cherry picking. Ben Askren, okay, we get that. But then he went against Tyron Woodley, who's a power puncher. But then people said, well, he's an MMA guy, fine. Then he goes and he fights a couple real boxers, kind of following the traditional route. People criticize him for that or didn't even watch those fights. Then he fought Tommy Fury. Every step of the way, there's been criticism, even fighting Mike Perry, Mike Tyson, whatever. But now he's taken on Anthony Joshua, who nobody, or not taking him on, but at least throwing it out there that he would be interested in that, who nobody can say anything about. That's a straight up legend in heavyweight boxing. Somebody who once people thought was going to be at the very top of the game. Like Justin, as a fighter, what do you think about this call out?
I love it, man. And Jake Paul is somebody that's really grown on me in the last couple of years, fighting tougher guys, really being an advocate for MMA fighters too, about insurance and more pay and this and that. So anybody that's trying to put more money in my pocket, it's hard not to support him. Now, when you look at Anthony Joshua, what he did to Francis Ngannou was just incredible. I do believe Anthony Joshua has lost a fight since then. I can't remember who it was to. I don't really follow boxing, but I remember seeing it because, after what I saw Anthony do to Francis, I thought he was going to become the world champion. And Anthony Joshua is still one of the best fighters in the world, guys. Just because a guy loses doesn't mean that he's not an incredible fighter, man. We're talking about, this is a game of inches, and Anthony Joshua is right there in the mix. And if Jake Paul goes out and calls out one of the best boxers in the world that's fighting a heavyweight, man, kudos to him. And I support Jake Paul, man. And people can say they hate him and this and that. And, I think it goes into everyone doesn't like Jake just because we're jealous, because the guy he's a multi-millionaire. He has all the cameras on him, but he's an advocate for MMA fighters like me, guys that aren't making that much money, that he wants to put more money in the pocket. So, I support Jake Paul with this call out. I think it's an incredible call to show MMA fans, to show boxing fans that he really does want to compete with the best in the world. This is not an MMA fighter. This is not a former UFC champion. This is a boxing champion in my position, or in my position. Like Anthony Joshua he's an awesome boxer, man. Look what he did to Francis Ngannou. And this is not a retired MMA guy. This is a real boxer, and I respect Jake Paul for this. And if he really wants it, I hope he gets it.
Now, granted, Eddie Hearn is his manager, so he's going to promote for him on his behalf. But Eddie Hearn has said many times, a legendary boxing manager and promoter, if you guys don't know who Eddie Hearn is, but he said many times that he believes Anthony Joshua could even beat Tyson Fury, that Anthony Joshua is the truth, that he's the best boxer out there. And so, I mean, if Jake Paul, I think this is one thing I heard a recent Jake Paul interview. He's like, no matter what, I'm never going to satisfy everybody. No matter what I do or what I achieve or what I accomplish, there's always going to people that will be saying, "Oh, he ducked this or he avoided that or he set it up this way for his benefit." That being said, I think this is the one fight where it would shut up like 95% of people. Maybe not 100%, but it would be 95% of people because there's nothing.
It depends. It depends how it goes. If Jake Paul gets in there and gets knocked out in 2 rounds, I mean, it's not going to look very, very, very good. But if Jake Paul gets in there and goes to decision or a close decision or hurts Anthony Joshua at some point in the fight, man, how can you not respect him for it?
Even if he goes in there and gets knocked out, I would have tremendous respect for him just for stepping in there. That's crazy to me to go in. He's just started boxing, like 5-6 years ago, and he wants to fight Anthony Joshua at heavyweight. I mean, to me, that's just respect all around just for even entertaining this idea. Now, is it BS? Is it just a publicity stunt? I don't know, but I think it's real. I think it's legit. And I think Jake Paul wants to prove that he's serious in the sport. So let's see what happens. But I thought that was pretty cool. I'm going to make a separate video about this later as well, but I think it's really cool. And man, I'd love to see it if it's for real. Okay.
Dude,
moving on.
You want to see the coolest thing I've ever seen?
Yes.
Dude, I ordered teriyaki bowl because we have to be at the venue in an hour. Look at what they sent me. Dude, chopsticks with a fork. Are you serious? This is like the greatest invention ever.
They need to patent that.
Oh shit. Bang, scoop it up. Dude, that's fucking awesome.
That needs a patent for sure. That's legend. I've never seen that ever.
Either have
That's pretty crazy. Okay, now let's move on to topic number 3. Alex Pereira, as we saw, lost to Ankalaev just a few weeks ago. And I think it was a pretty decisive victory. I think most people agree. Yes, Ankalaev definitely won. I know Alex Pereira and his coach went on the Ariel Helwani show last week, and they felt that they won rounds 1, 3, and 5 and should have gotten the decision. I know people were criticizing them for that stance. Regardless, it has now come out, and I don't know. I know some people were questioning this, but this is from Joe Rogan. I don't see why people are now like getting on Joe Rogan's case and saying he's not reliable. I mean, I don't think he would say something without having a good source for it. But Joe Rogan since came out and said that Alex Pereira had a broken hand and he was suffering from the norovirus. Now, I know everybody has stuff coming into a fight. And even Alex Pereira, to his credit, said on the Ariel Helwani show when Ariel brought it up, look, I'm sure Ankalaev was dealing with his own stuff, so I don't want to focus on these negative things. But he did say that he was very, very close to pulling out of the fight, ended up taking the fight, doing what he did, and losing a pretty close decision. Some people say it was 4-1, but regardless, went to a decision. He didn't get knocked out or anything. First of all, does this make you think, if this is true, does this make you believe that maybe Alex Pereira in the rematch would decisively win or no?
Man, it was a close fight, but at the end of the day, Alex lost that fight, man, and I'm a big Alex fan, especially over Ankalaev. I'm not saying I don't like Ankalaev, but I'm definitely an Alex fan over him. But I thought Alex lost, man, plain and simple. If he had a broken hand, I mean, let's see the X-ray. Let's like I mean, I've broken my hands multiple times, man, and there's no training, there's no fight, like there, like I don't know, man. I'm not saying Joe Rogan's lying. I'm not like. But again, like if you're going to go into a compromising situation where people see that you're the underdog already, why would you want to put yourself in a more compromising situation? You look at Conor McGregor, he had a broken toe and he pulled out, and nobody ever saw the X-ray of that. I think Alex is a lot more reliable than Conor, and more honest than Conor. And I think if he was really hurt, he would have come out and said something before the fight. He would have showed the X-ray. With that being said, they're talking about a rematch in August. And I'd love to see the rematch. And, the rematch isn't going to lie. If Ankalaev goes in there and does the same thing, holds him up against the fence. It was a very uneventful fight, in my opinion. I was very bored. When Ankalaev would put him up against the fence, I'd go out and get a drink, go out in the kitchen, get something to eat, and come back. Ankalaev still has him up against the fence. And I'm on my phone, jamming away. It just wasn't that exciting of a matchup. Am I excited about the rematch? No, I'm not. I mean, I'm excited for Alex. I'm not excited to be like, oh man, I can't wait to watch this. But I'm excited for Alex to get in there and really, demonstrate what he can do if there was an injury in the first match. But again, if the fight goes the same way, man, there's no question that he wasn't injured going into the fight. I hope Alex gets his belt back, but if he goes in there and wins, is there going to be another rematch? Are we going to hold up the division of just battling these guys going back and forth, especially when, I mean, they're not going to knock each other out, really. You can already see that from the first round or from the first go. Oh, excuse me. Been chugging on coffee all morning. But I'm excited for Alex. I'd like him to become the champion again. I'm just not really excited to watch this fight, if that makes sense.
I'm pretty sure if Alex wins, and again, I think people like Ankalaev fans got mad when I said this last time, but I don't think there will be a rematch, and it's not because I dislike Ankalaev. I just think that that's the way that the UFC views him. That I think they wanted to keep Alex as champ, and that's just for business reasons. Maybe there's something personal between him and Dana White or the brass at the UFC. I don't know, but whatever the reasons are, I think they would prefer Pereira to be the champ, and I don't think they would give Ankalaev another rematch if he lost. And I do think a knockout is possible if we believe this narrative that his hand was compromised. It kind of makes sense in that why did Alex have such a leg kick heavy game plan? Granted, he's done that many times, but maybe his hands were compromised and he wasn't able to throw freely and really go for a clean knockout with a punch like he's done so many times. I don't know. So I'm really, really curious. Last thing I want to say about that fight, what's it called? Tom Aspinall made some really interesting comments that was highlighted by MMA Joey, where he made the point, hey, he's like, oh, everybody's talking about 11 failed takedowns, and Alex Pereira blocked, stuffed every takedown. 12. But he's like, when you really watch the fight, he's like, I don't think Magomed Ankalaev was shooting takedowns to get him to the ground. He was shooting on him to grapple with him, and he achieved just that. He said legitimate takedowns really only maybe there were like 2 or 3, and those were the failed ones. But the rest of them, it maybe looked like takedown attempts, but that was just him trying to engage and push him up against the fence. What are your thoughts on that take?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. You look at Alex's defense. His defense has been really good. Like people talk about how he can't wrestle, how he can't grapple, but nobody's really gotten him to the ground. So it doesn't really make sense to me. Not that a lot of guys have tried, but I definitely see where he's tried to put him up against fence because Ankalaev holds him up against fence, whether he's doing damage or not, he's winning. And that's a great game plan. And not to mention when Alex is defending and he has his underhooks or his clinch, but dealing with that pressure is going to fill up Alex's arms with lactic acid and gas him out. And that could have been the game plan too, man. It's a very boring, game plan. You look at Bilal. He throws these crazy combos, these crazy kicks, and then he shoots in and pins him up against the fence, and he does that for 5 rounds. It's called making a fight boring, and sometimes against high level strikers, that's what you have to do. You have to make the fight boring. You have to get your opponent frustrated. Bilal is the best in the world at it, and Ankalaev coming into this fight had a very similar game plan, and he worked it to perfection, and it was a very boring fight, but that's sometimes how you have to win. And Bilal has shown time and time that you can win like that. And Ankalaev went out and did the same thing.
That makes sense. I am very much looking forward to this rematch because I just want to see if Alex can figure out a new game plan or figure out maybe apply the same game plan, but being healthy can make it work and come back and still be on top. I think it would be really, really interesting if he can do that. And if he doesn't, then Ankalaev is the truth. He's the champ, and we'll see what happens. But I think it'll be a big fight for the division. Tehran says, funny how people were clowning Jamal Hill for being salty, but where's that energy and smoke for Alex? He's made nothing but excuses since you think he's made that many excuses? I mean, Joe Rogan is the one that brought that up. I have to think about that a little bit. I feel like Alex, I feel like he was trying not to make excuses and he didn't want to shine a light or attention on these things that have been brought up, but maybe I'm wrong and maybe I'm biased on that front. So that's a fair point. I don't know. I'll have to think about that a little bit more. Okay. Moving on to topic number 4. Oh, wait. I had to bring this up because I saw a video on this last night. It came out like right as I was going to bed. And I guess Conor McGregor is serious about running for president. And I want to talk to Justin about these last statements. I'm not going to show the actual clip, but what he said it was a post BKFC press conference. And Conor was talking about, this is another thing too, that he was like, he's basically now trying to say that bare knuckle is the truth. It's even more exciting and more like it really gets to the heart of people more than MMA fighting, which I don't know if I agree with. And I want to know your take on that. But it's almost like he's kind of going on the offensive a little bit against the UFC. That was my take, where he's trying to position bare knuckle above the UFC in terms of entertainment value and all these other things. But anyways, we're going to come back to that point because I want to hear your thoughts. But he said that people were asking him about a fight. He's brought up again how he's got 2 fights left on his UFC contract. He brought that up. He said that also there was an offer for him to do a bare knuckle fight at Alcatraz, something crazy like that. And he was throwing out these different things, but he's like, man, I don't know. I just feel a calling to my people. And he's like, I had a lot of meetings when I was in the U.S. I have Donald Trump's support, and I feel like this is my time. I need to give myself to the people of Ireland. So it looks like he's dead serious about this presidential run and that would culminate in the election in November of 2025, I believe. So Justin, like, I don't know. You said weeks ago that you thought Conor was out. I made a video saying I also think Conor is out. I think this is it. I think he might be done with fighting, at least for the foreseeable future. What are your thoughts on Conor's statements being serious about running for president?
I mean, everything he says he's going to do, he's serious about. Oh, I'm doing I want to be in the UFC. I want to be in bare knuckle. Now I want to be the president. Like, he's spreading himself thin. He's spreading himself way too thin. I think you're froze. Okay, there you go. Yeah, he's spreading himself way too thin, and really, like, how is it? And, okay, so say he does become the president. Oh, now he wants to be the president that fights in the UFC. I don't know, man. I'm just so, dude. I like Conor McGregor as a character, but I'm just so over him always saying, "Oh, this is what I'm going to do." He is. He's what's over promised and under delivered. I'll tell you what, over promised and under delivered is the best expression you can say when it comes to Conor McGregor. I promise I'm going to be the UFC champion. I'm going to be the double champ. I'm going to be the triple champ. And I mean, and he was obviously the double champ at one point. But I mean, since losing to Dustin Poirier, not once but twice, oh, I'm going to get back. I'm going to get my belt back, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. Oh, promising the UFC fans, oh, I'm coming back. He gets Michael Chandler. Oh, I broke my toe. I can't fight. All right, cool. Over promise. He promised that he was coming back in 2024. He promised he's coming back in 2025. He promised he'll be back in the UFC. He promised to be back. He'll be doing bare knuckle. He's making all these promises, and he's not doing good on any of them. So what makes me think this is any different, man? And even if he does run for the presidency, I mean, Joe Exotic was going to run for the American president. Like, come on, man. Like, he did run. Exactly. And you know what I mean? Like, okay, cool. And where did that get him? It got him nowhere. And it'd be the same thing for Conor McGregor. Now, I think Ireland MMA fans would vote for him. Like, oh, I'm going to vote for Conor. I'm going to do, but why? What's his political stance? Where does he think here's the thing. That's like, if Conor McGregor goes into politics, he doesn't know anything about politics. So what he's going to be doing is he's going to be calling Donald Trump and asking, hey, what do you think I should do? And then when Donald tells him to do, he's going to do, or maybe not Donald Trump, but somebody along those lines, because he doesn't have, I don't think he has the experience or the knowledge to make these world. I mean, he's if he's the president, he's going to be changing the world of Ireland. He's going to be changing the daily life. He has to talk about taxes. He has to talk about tariffs. He has to talk about fucking immigration. He has to make all these decisions that he knows nothing about. In turn, that means he's going to be calling people, asking what they think he should do. And essentially, he's not going to be really the president. He's just going to be taking ideas from other people that he respects, like Donald Trump or somebody in Ireland that he respects, and he's going to be doing what they tell him to do. And you look at someone like Donald Trump, and I'm not a conservative, I'm not a liberal, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm Justin James. I have my own opinion about anything. I don't have a negative opinion about Donald Trump. I don't have a positive opinion about Donald Trump. But with that being said, I think like if Conor McGregor calls like the U.S. president and asks him what he should do, Donald Trump is really smart, and he might give him an answer that benefits the U.S. And he might, he might give him an answer that benefits the U.S. more than it does Ireland, man. And I'm not saying that's exactly what would happen, but it's definitely a possibility. I'm using Donald Trump because he's our president, but there's other politicians that Conor McGregor is friends with, I'm sure. And he's going to be asking, hey, what should I do? What should I do? And he's just going to take the advice from somebody else and not really understanding the full gratitude of the situation or the gravity of the situation.
Yeah, that very well could be. Just to play devil's advocate, I will say there are some interesting examples we see, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's, I mean, like on another level, entrepreneur as well as bodybuilder and movie star and all these things. But he went in and was governor. We had Jesse Ventura, a professional wrestler that was apparently a very high quality governor. The one thing of Minnesota, the one thing that I could say that could work, and yes, he's gonna need to rely on other people. Even I think vetted politicians. I think that's the whole idea, is you need to rely on experts and vet those experts and trust those experts on all these different matters and issues that are going to be affecting a country. What the way that I think Conor could do
time out.
Yeah.
Let's think about what you just said. Mm-hmm. Trust a politician? Come on, man. Like, what fuck? Every politician is out there to suit themselves, suit their agenda, and what benefits them and their people the most. If they're rich, the rich help the rich. If they're poor, the poor. I'm not going to say we're helping the poor, but like very, very rarely do you see. I mean, I don't know, man. It's just I think the whole thing is corrupt. Sorry to interrupt you. It's just
no, it's okay. And I get what you're saying. Dude, I feel this way as well. But it's the reason why I have trouble listening to political debates, because they just feel nonsensical to me. And on top of that, it is, again, people feigning to have a public interest. And I think the majority of the time it is self-serving. It is about being on a platform, having that clout, having access to money and power and all these other things. I 100% agree with you. But all I was going to say was, I think the one positive that could work, and this is if this is true, I don't know if this is actually true, but if Conor goes in there with the true intention to actually help people and not serve his own special interests, not serve his ego and things like that, that could be a change in the positive direction. Because I think like the majority of politicians in power today globally, not talking about anyone specifically, but it generally is from that standpoint of they're just in there. They're really in it for themselves. I think a lot of them, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them do have a disconnect from the public in all sorts of different ways. And they're really in there feigning that they have public interest, but that it's just not the case. So anyways, I think it could be interesting. I want to go back to one point, and we do have some comments real quick from Tehran. Said Conor's a procrastinator. And he also brings up this point. Remember when Conor had a plan for a season in 2020 after Cowboy Cerrone? He's saying, Cowboy Cerrone, he said he lied about that too. I don't know if that was so much of a lie as the UFC having trouble finding the right matchup and really getting him positioned correctly for their brand and to bolster the UFC. I don't know which it was, but I see your point. But I just want to go back really quickly to Conor's strong comments, putting BKFC and bare knuckle fighting above mixed martial arts in terms of competition, entertainment value, all that stuff. What are your thoughts? You're now somebody who has fought once in bare knuckle. It sounds like you're never going to do it again. But what are your thoughts? Because I disagree. I think that bare knuckle is interesting. I'm fascinated by it. We're going to have a couple bare knuckle fights on the card tonight. But at the end of the day, for me, it's all MMA, because I feel like MMA is the truest representation of a real fight. But what do you think in terms of what you like in terms of the sport?
You can't compare bare knuckle to UFC. It's totally two different sports. And I would do another bare knuckle fight, but I do have a minimum. I do have a monetary minimum now, or it'd have to just be a really exciting experience for me. But regardless of that, Conor McGregor is promoting his brand. He's an owner of BKFC. He's part owner of BKFC. Of course, he's never going to say a company is better than his company. You know, he has to promote his company. He has to say that, whether he feels that way or not. Now, the thing I like about BKFC is there are a lot of knockouts, man. Guys get effed up, man, and it's exciting and towing the line. You know, when you're starting right across from your partner instead of in corner. I mean, that was like me and Lloyd are face to face with each other in the middle of the ring. You know, as we get started, I thought that. I mean, there's a lot of great things to it. The problem with bare knuckle is the longevity. Guys can't go on. Guys can't fight. I mean, as a whole, I'm not going to say there's not going to be exceptions like Lorenzo Hunt and Mike Perry and guys like that. But for the majority, guys can't go long. They can't fight for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You look at John Jones, you know, had his UFC debut in 2008. He had his MMA debut even earlier than that. And, you know, he's been fighting MMA for 20 years. You look at me. I had my MMA debut in 2007. You know, let's say I had my bare knuckle debut in 2007. I never did MMA. There's no way that my body could physically last, because the damage you take trying to give somebody damage, and that's the biggest thing I didn't like about bare knuckle, is when I was in there with Lloyd. You know, and I was hitting him, like I hit him in the forehead, I hit him in the top of the head, and I'm hurting myself. And you know, with that adrenaline, I thought myself as like, oh, I'm gonna have such a high adrenaline rush that when I crack him with, you know, a good shot, I won't feel it till after the fight. That wasn't true, man. You know, and maybe I have brittle hands, and I do feel I do have brittle hands compared to like guys like Lloyd was, where they hit me like I'm shelled up, and he's just punching me over and over in the top of the head. I remember he lands some pretty big shots. I'm like, oh, I know he felt that. I know he felt that. And he'd back up and he'd still have his hands tight. When I landed that overhand left and I hit him right here in the back of the head, immediately I knew I was compromised. I knew, I was like, fuck, I can't. And then I'm covered up. And that was the biggest thing I didn't like about bare knuckle. The longevity of the sport will not last. Guys will not be fighting for 5, 10, 15 years. That won't happen. Guys, I mean, the average fight right now, they're less than 5 fights. I mean, there are exceptions. Jordan Christensen, good friend of mine, he's had 8 bare knuckle fights. But again, just dealing with the hand damage, you know, I think bare knuckle would be awesome and it wouldn't be bare knuckle anymore, but boxing with MMA gloves on, because remember, MMA gloves in the UFC aren't to protect you. They're to protect my hands. They're to protect my hands on that damage and taking that fear out like when I'm in an MMA fight, I sling them and I wing them, man. I don't care if I hit somebody on the head, in the mouth, and anywhere. I'm not. I mean, I have broke my hands before, but I'm not thinking about that.
Mhm.
It's again. I've had 79 fights, and I've had 79 fights. One of them being bare knuckle, and to go in there and land the third big shot that I landed, to fracture my hand, that just sucks, man. And I think that's why bare knuckle can never be as popular, because once you get this guy like Lorenzo Hunt or Mike Perry, I mean, those are anomalies in the sport that can keep going. But these guys, like for the majority, guys aren't going to last that long. Their career is going to be less than 5 fights. And how can you get behind and support somebody's career when just they're only going to be around for a couple of years? And again, there will be a couple guys that exceed that boundary, but let's take an average of fighters. It's just I don't know, man. It's just hard because when someone goes in, you want to support them for their whole career, but when that career is only 2 years, and now you got to find another new guy to support, it's like it gets exhausting. And going in there and guys breaking their hands, having surgery, they might be out for 6-8 months at a time. That's the biggest discrepancy, or the biggest problem I have with bare knuckle is fighters hurting themselves trying to do more damage to their opponent.
All right. Well, very interesting. I guess we'll have to see as BKFC continues with Conor McGregor at the helm, or maybe co-helm with Dave Feldman. But very interesting. And Tehran just quickly says, Justin, you've been fighting since 2007. Dang, I was 12 years old back then. He also says, crazy. It's going to be 17 years in August since John Jones joined the UFC. That is wild. Okay, we got one topic left. We're going to touch on it briefly because Justin and I are going to do
minus.
There you go.
So you say like John Jones has fought in the UFC for 17 years. Yes, that's true. But subtract all the years he's taken off. He's went on 2-3 years in a row without fighting. So when guys say he's been in the UFC, it's like, hey, I've been if I didn't get cut from the UFC, I've been in the UFC for 5 years. You know what I mean? But I mean, obviously I got cut, but had I not gotten cut, I haven't fought in 3 or 4 years. So to me, that kind of takes away from the whole 17-year thing, because he didn't fight probably 5 or 6 of those years. So I mean, still 10 years is incredible. Don't get me wrong, but when you take these long year after year layoff, I think it should take away from the longevity of being in the UFC. You look at guys like Jim Miller, who have been in the UFC
crazy.
I mean, come on, that guy's he fought in UFC 100, 200, 300. He's still in the UFC. He's still competing at the highest level, and he fights every year. That's impressive to me. John Jones is obviously very impressive as well, but I don't like saying he has been in the UFC technically for 17 years, but really, how long has he been in the UFC?
Or Kevin Holland, the number of fights he's had in 5 years, like 20 fights or 19 fights.
20,
that's insane.
No. 29 fights since 2018. He's had more fights than John Jones. John Jones has had like 20 fights in the UFC since 2007. Or 2008. Tron would say the exact date, but like 20 fights. And Kevin Holland since 2018. From 2020 to 2025, it's like 26 fights. It's something crazy.
Dude, we need to make a joint video talking about how people disrespect Kevin Holland so much. He should get way more respect for everything he's done. That's so crazy, actually. Wow. Okay, real quick, we got to end because we got to jump off soon and start getting ready for the show. By the way, I'm
not going to get ready until after sound check. I mean, we don't have to be there till like 6 o'clock. We're doing sound check at 3. I haven't even showered yet, so I don't think we're in a rush for that. As soon as we're done with sound check, I'm just coming right back up to the room.
Okay. All right. So check this out real quick. We're going to do a quick final topic and then we're going to jump off. Like I said, we're going to actually make a more in-depth video, but I did want to quickly touch on Cain Velasquez's sentence. We haven't talked about it since it kind of happened and came out. I'm going to quickly give my thoughts. I'm going to turn it over to Justin and then we're going to conclude the show. So here are my thoughts. Okay. And I want to preface this by saying, I don't know if you guys know this about me who watch the show, but I am an attorney. I'm a licensed attorney in California. I haven't practiced law in like 13 years or something like that. But when I was an attorney, I practiced for about 4 years and I did patent law. I didn't do criminal law. I've also had some experiences in my life that have given me a fresh new perspective on what it's like to deal with somebody who is harassing you or doing something wrong to you. And this is not a critique of the legal of police, by the way, but the way the legal system is structured, it leaves people feeling defenseless and hopeless a lot of times because the law can only do so much. And the bad guys, the perpetrators, the evil people on this planet. Man, they can do a lot to you if they're smart and they're savvy. They can terrorize you, and there's not much the police can do up until a certain threshold is crossed. And then even when that threshold is crossed, what are you getting? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then you're out back potentially terrorizing the person again. And this person who's done nothing wrong now has to live in fear. These have major psychological effects on people. Not to mention, now I can't even imagine, and we're going to be careful with our words here because we don't want to say specific words to get this video demonetized and whatnot, but we all know what happened to Cain and his son by that one individual. And when that's to a level that I can't imagine, my situation is a little different. I'm not going to go into a ton of details, but I had a stalker that was coming to my house and doing all sorts of stuff, leaving gifts, ringing my doorbell, sleeping in front of my door. Like this went on for, and prior to that, there was a lot of online communication that I was receiving nonstop through Instagram, through YouTube. I mean, it was a horrendous experience, and it only stopped after I had to go to the police so many times. I can't even tell you. I think I went to the police station probably a dozen times, filing report after report after report, getting a restraining order. That was an insane ordeal. And even after having that, the harassment continued. And there was nothing that the police could do until they caught her red-handed. And I was the one that actually had to go out and pursue the perpetrator, get police to track her down. It was crazy. And then she got arrested. She's actually been in jail since August of 2024. And it's still ongoing. After going through that whole ordeal, I understand what it's like to be terrorized by somebody, to be harassed endlessly by somebody where you feel like the law is not doing enough. There's so many times where, and I never felt like this before, but there's so many times where I wanted to do, I didn't, but I wanted to do something. I felt that way. I felt like, dude, I feel powerless. I feel victimized. I want to take some control back. I wish I could get out there, put my MMA gloves out there and go on and defend myself, or when she's coming to, but you just can't, because if you cross that line, as we see with Cain, look what's happened, and so let me give you my kind of dual perspectives on this. So one, with my experience working with law enforcement, by the way, which the police have been amazing. And so I have like the utmost respect for the police in Los Angeles and everything they try to do within the bounds of the law to help me and eventually making the arrest. And the prosecutors have been everybody's been amazing. But from my legal background, yeah, I do believe that we have laws in place. We have to follow the letter of the law for specific reasons, because when that breaks down, society breaks down. People think, they think negatively about the police or this and that. But when we don't have laws in place that people respect and follow, and we don't have proper authority to enforce those laws, everything breaks down. Everything breaks down. Your safety, your job, your ability to save and store money and own a home and be safe in that home, it all breaks down. So I understand the perspective that there has to be some level of punishment for people essentially being vigilantes. And trust me, I've been in that position where I felt like I needed to be a vigilante for my own justice and for my own safety. So I totally get where Cain's coming from. Now, on the other side of the coin, I think years before going through this myself, I would have been like, dude, no matter what we can't just go out there. And even if somebody does something terrible to us or to our family, sure, you can go out and commit a crime and get revenge on your own, but you gotta pay the price because we have laws in place and whatever. And I would have felt pretty secure in that standpoint. But now, after going through this myself, I understand fully where Cain is coming from, because I think he was trying to get legal justice for this guy, and it wasn't happening, at least fast enough, where he still felt like other kids were being victimized. So I really, really understand that perspective, again, because sometimes I've seen it. I've experienced it. Sad to say, as much as I value the police, but I think it's more the legal structures in place and the way the law operates and what people have to do in order before they go to jail and all this stuff is very, very frustrating. So I also understand Cain's frustration at the end of the day with what happened with the 5-year sentence, where he's really probably only going to serve 2 years in prison. It feels like, I think this is not a terrible situation, because we have to show that laws need to be respected and followed. But at the same time, I know the judge had sympathy for Cain. Do I feel like it was the right amount of jail? I don't know. That's a question that I think would be better asked to a criminal attorney, a defense attorney, or a prosecutor, or something like that. I don't know the full scope of the super intricacies of the case, but I just want to give my perspective there, having both the law background as well as being a victim of something that was really traumatizing. I know it may not sound always traumatizing to other people, but it was very, very traumatizing for a very long time. And that's my 2 cents. So I hope that I think Cain's going to do just fine in prison. I don't think anybody's going to mess with him. I've heard that he gets a lot of respect in that system. It sucks that he has to be away from his family. And it also sucks that this is a situation that was forced onto him. He didn't ask for it. It was put on him by a total degenerate, and now he's had to take these actions to defend his family, and it's horrible. But I just want to give those 2 perspectives why I can't fully say, hey, he should just be let go completely, because I still have to think about what the law means to our society and to people individually. So there's my 2 cents. Justin, let me turn it over to you as we close out the show.
Yeah, for sure. And Western reached out to me on Instagram, wanted us to make a video about this, and just to update you, I did make a 5 to 7 minute video on it. Huzefa is still making his, and we're gonna put it together, and it's gonna be a long video on the whole topic. So just to answer your question, because like I said, Western asked me if we were making a video on it. Yes, it's still in production right now, and hopefully will be coming out soon. But to go to give you my 2 cents about this is, being a dad, man, this really hits home, and I'm gonna say basically what every other dad and every other MMA fighter saying is, man, I can understand why Cain did this, man. But to agree with you as you do, I think he could have handled it just a lot better. And he could have got a lot more leniency just to go in this high speed chase it was an 11-mile chase. It lasted about 15 minutes. And then to open up shooting at a car when there was a school in the area, endangering all the civilians, endangering the other people in the car. The other people in the car, I can probably almost guarantee didn't know why they were being chased. I don't know if this is a fact, but again, can you imagine the guys? Oh, I touched this guy's son, and now he's trying to kill me. Help me, help me! Like, I don't see that happening. But with that being said, you can't just fire your gun off in the public at another vehicle. He hit his I think it's Harry. The guy's name is like Harry. I can't remember, Gutierrez or something like that. He ended up hitting his stepdad twice, once in the arm and once in the side. He survived. But with that being said, you can't do that, man. And I think if Cain was, I just wish he would have thought about it a little more, because he could have planned out such a better attack per se. I just would have loved Cain to find this guy, have someone follow him, get him in a spot, and put his hands on him. And I think it just would have been so much more satisfying. And I know this sounds very, very brutal, and you guys might think I'm crazy for saying this, but if that was me in the situation, it's this man put his hands on my son, my 4-year-old. I want to put my hands on him now. And as I'm choking the life out of him, and again, excuse my vulgarity here, but if any man touched my son, I wouldn't want to shoot them with a gun. I'd want to choke them around their neck and I want them to look into my eyes as I take their life. And I tell you what, had he done something like that, I know it sounds vulgar, but you guys don't understand, I couldn't imagine. I'm starting to sweat right now as I'm sitting here in my 65 air conditioned room, because it's such a heated topic for me. I couldn't imagine, a man putting his hands on my son and potentially ruining his mentality of life for the rest of his life. This is something that his son is going to have to deal with for the rest of his life. And personally, I just wouldn't get the satisfaction of shooting him with a gun and killing him. I would have to choke him choke him to death and have them look into my eyes as I'm killing them. Now we go to the next piece. Yes, Cain was sentenced to 5 years, and allegedly, on a couple news articles before I made the video, the judge was in tears because he didn't want to sentence him. But again, like you said, you have to follow the law, and I don't, man. Like, you look at this man. It came out. I can't remember when it happened, but this guy was being sentenced. He's being handcuffed. He's taken into the courtroom, and you guys, I don't know the name, and I know one of you guys that's watching the show, and Huzefa, maybe you do as well. The guy kind of stood outside the courtroom with a gun in his hand, like so, and then when the guy walked up to him and point blanked him, shot him in the head, and then dropped the gun and was arrested. I don't know if you guys have you heard of that story, Huzefa?
I mean, I've heard stories like that, but yeah, send it to me. Yeah,
it's on video. It's on video. You see the guy walk up with the gun, and you see him blow his head off.
Yeah.
But again, the judge was very emotional in his sentencing. Now, Cain has already served time. Cain has served 1,200 days in jail already, or prison. I don't know if it was prison or jail, and they're going to count that towards his 5 years. So really, he's only going to be in jail for, at a max, 2 years, and it might even be just 1 year. And I know that doesn't sound like a long time, but bro, like a year in jail, a year behind bars, a year in that lifestyle is going to be miserable, man. And
Oh yeah.
I think he's going to get a lot of respect because child molesters are known for being killed in jail.
Mhm.
And when Cain goes in there as a former UFC champion, I think he's going to get a lot of respect from the whole population of the prison, whether they're murderers or whatever they're in there for. I think they're going to respect Cain for that. I think being away from the family for that time is sure going to be mad. But man, I just really wish that he would have handled the situation differently. And I think if he would have used his bare hands, he would have got a much lighter sentence as well.
The last thing I'll say on this as we close the show, and you guys for once again jumping on early, we really appreciate it. If you guys could like the stream, we really appreciate it as well. But my last closing thoughts are, I know, Justin, you're saying, hey, I wish he could have handled it differently. And I think we all do, right? Like, I think that he wouldn't be in this position. Hopefully things would have gone smoother for it. I mean, who knows?
This
right?
is a situation as a dad. Sorry, this is a
Yeah,
situation for a dad that I don't want you handling this situation. I don't want the police handling this situation. I don't want the judge. I don't want the guy locked up. I want to kill this mother effer. This is we can call it vigilante justice. You can call it whatever you want. This is a dad taking care of his son, and the emotion of seeing, let's say that the justice system handled it and they go to court and he gets 25 years in jail. That isn't enough for me. That isn't enough for me. Let's say he goes to jail and gets killed in jail. That's not enough for me. I want this mother effer to look into my eyes as I take his life and let him know that, you touched my son. Now I'm touching you, boy.
And yeah, no, I totally get that. I guess all I wanted to say at the end was, I think what people may miss, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people totally get Cain's position and his mentality and why he maybe broke and went crazy and did something that I think he said publicly that he regrets and wishes he didn't do things that way. But what I think, just the last thing to keep in mind is, and hopefully that's a perspective that I can provide. Again, my case is different than what he went through drastically. I get that, but there can come a point where the frustration gets pretty high when like your gut tells you that the perpetrator, whatever, should already be locked up, should already be serving jail time, and they're out and about, they're doing their thing. You have to follow the laws and wait until that person gets arraigned and all this stuff. Like it can drive you crazy. So I think that's what happened. He probably had a literal like mental emotional break because I believe he was trying to follow the legal system. That's my recollection for a long time. And I think the frustration just built up and he did something that he regrets, and it is what it is. So anyways, we're going to make a more detailed video and go in depth. Thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate it. We got to jump off. I got to start getting ready. Justin, I'll see you in a few. And once again, thank you guys so much. We love all the support. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.